Maybe. Sweetie. Maybe. Morning. Oh.
Hello.
Hello.
You want a dog?
Yeah.
You want a puppy?
Yeah.
Mm.
Give.
Look, go to Auntie Julie. Look, go to her. Go to
Okay.
Auntie Julie.
Hello.
Here we are. Little shitbag. Get out.
Look at the little monster behind you. What's going on with that Collyway puppy?
Shh.
Look. Counter surfing in demo.
We have one of those, don't we?
Right then.
Oh, Julie, before we start, can you
Okay.
remember we had somebody had a somebody had a conversation about stinging feet
Yeah.
and a spray you recommended.
Glucosilin.
Can you spell it?
Yeah, I can. Hang on, where's my chat?
I've got a pen.
Oh, I'm going to write it in here so everyone can see it.
Oh, good. I will beat you. I will. All right, LEU. I'm going to stand with Julie. I'm stand down to Julie.
So who are we missing? I feel like we're short. Just going to see if I can find my reminder.
Come out.
Oh, he's loud tonight.
He's loud all the time. He's very rude. No man. Are
you interested? Is there a puppy? Come on, have a look if you like.
That's why we beat him.
There's a puppy woofing. Yeah, there is. That's not, yeah, thanks. Okay, I'm trying to look at my phone. Oh, good girl. My list of attendees, Dawn's not copied it over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No. All right, I give up. We'll start anyway, and hopefully they'll let themselves in. So somebody I was trying to remember the chat. There was a problem, wasn't there, which I said might be useful for us to review the downstay stuff. Who was that? Someone was saying they were having trouble with their puppy.
We can't do it down at the moment, can we?
Good, because we're going to go over it again. We're going to talk about it. I don't know why I've just changed you to speaker view. I was just going to look on Facebook Messenger to find out who it was that said that they were needing something, and I thought that a downstone might be a useful tool. Let's just have a look. Find the right chat. Might have been Millie. It wasn't Facebook, was it? It was WhatsApp. Lord. There's too many different forms of social media communication now, in my opinion. You go looking for a message and it can be on all sorts of different places. Needless to say, my WhatsApp's set on the wrong group. Right, got it. Oh, mine says host is in another meeting. I wonder what's going on. Millie, you've managed to get in. Are you all right? So that was a message from Millie, said she couldn't get in. Rosie. Rosie arrived. No. So where's Rosie? Okay, hopefully Rosie's coming. She's had trouble getting in. So yeah, one was, what do I do when my puppy grabs something that I don't want them to have? Hopefully, I had a really busy working week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so this was all going on while I was working. And it was Andrea, you were asking, what do you do if they're suddenly grabbed? Did you get my message? It was a bit quick. Did you understand it?
Yeah, I've been trying the various things like scatter feeding. It just seems to gulp it even faster. So whatever he's got, he does sometimes drop it. It depends on what he's got. If it's a bit of wood, it's fair game and he's going to eat it.
Hang on. Dawn's ringing me.
Oh.
Hello? I've got people in my puppy class. Oakley, let's have a look. No. Oh, hang on. Rosie has just joined us. Okay. All right, bye. So that was done. And I've lost track of where you were.
I was saying that some things he will gulp down, other things he will drop. So I suppose it depends. He's great coming when he thinks you've got something. So we scatter feed him. We do the 1, 2, 3 counting thing, and it's all working really well. I don't have to chase him around the garden or anything like that. He does come. It's just that sometimes he comes eating what he's got, and sometimes he spits it out.
Yeah.
So I'm trying not to panic, as what you said. Most of them tend to not eat rubbish, but he does.
Yeah, it's awkward because if you do chase after them and keep taking stuff off them, they're more likely to learn to swallow it or to act aggressively to defend it. And 90% of living with puppies and surviving puppyhood is management, it's tidiness, it's prevention, and it's a pain in the ass, and it is hard. If you constantly get into that habit of telling them off, you're doing so much damage. And because of other things that we want to teach them later, we don't want to put them off picking things up and bringing them towards us as well, you know. And if you're forcing things out of them or telling them off for picking things up, you might find at some point in the future I'm asking you to teach something else where I do want them to be confident to go out and pick things up and bring them back to you, for example. So it is, I'm afraid, management and training. It is prevent them from getting access to those things in the first place, and just being super vigilant and never ever leaving a room without doing a quick scan behind you.
Yeah, we're learning that.
Yeah.
He's completely different to Sid. Sid has never chewed anything. You've never had to move anything. she's picked things up in the garden, but she's never done what he's doing. He's like, everything is fair game at the moment. And it's where we live is a housing estate there's areas of it that are a bit dodgy. So you worry what's on the floor around those areas. And it's, like you said, training, getting him to drop. That's what we're really going to work on.
Yeah, and it's not easy. It's not easy, and some dogs, like you say, some dogs are more that way, and some dogs really don't ever bother. I mean, Twiggy was awful from being 20. When I first got her, she could already reach the back of the cupboards, you know, the countertops, because she was that tall, and all she had to do was jump a little bit and she could get anything. So everything had to go in the microwave or, you know, into one of the top cupboards in the kitchen. And
but even sitting down, when you go to, because we don't sit at a table to eat, we sit in the room. As you're sitting down, it's like on your plate. It's terrible. Today he's had the bloody cream off my cheesecake because.
All right. So hopefully what we're doing today with the downstay is going to try and get you over that to a degree.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyone else then? So the other one was when you're cooking and trying to prepare stuff, your dog is nagging. Yeah. So that is, again, we're going to go through using downstay as a method of teaching them not to do that. Anyone else with any other issues? No? If you need me, unmute yourself or give me a wave. So let's go with the kitchen thing first. When you're prepping food on the side, obviously I've got to use my office desk, which is slightly, I think, lower than the average countertop, but it's the same principle. And you can use, if you've got a coffee table, you could use the same principle. So we've already taught the dogs the idea that just because something is in front of them doesn't mean to say it's theirs. If your dog isn't getting that idea, and go back to all of those sort of self-control lessons, yeah, you know, where you're doing things like don't go for the hand, otherwise the hand will close, or when you're going for your zooming the treat. If you jump towards the treat isn't going to be available. Yeah. Wait until it zooms all the way to you, or mousy games, things like that. So we're going to do the same, but now we've got them on the counter. So can I have a Twiggy? Twiggy? Just a Twiggy, not a maybe. So there's food and it's on the counter, and the only reason she isn't going for it is because we've done all those self-control games. Yeah, that's the only reason. And what she's going to offer is an alternative behavior. And I'm going to catch that, whatever it is. It doesn't matter if it's, to begin with, it doesn't matter if it's a sit or if it's a down or if it's anything. I'm looking for anything other than going for that food. Can you come out from under the thing and go on your bed? On bed. The little old deaf girl's keeping us company. So you start that by, when you're at your counter, I don't know how high a counter is, but let's imagine it's about this high. That makes me very short, doesn't it? You're prepping your food, and next to the food that you're actually prepping for a human being, you've got food that you're happy for your dog to have. And that might be food that you can share. So it could be human food if it's dog safe and your dog likes it. So it could be bits of whatever you're doing. And you've also got dog food or something you're happy to deliver to them. And every time my dog isn't jumping up or begging or nagging, I'm going to not make a big deal of it. I'm not going to look down or get excited. I'm going to be doing my thing up here, and out of the corner of my eye, I'm just looking to see what's the dog doing. And if the dog isn't bothering me and isn't nagging at me, a piece goes over the edge, just like that. Now, if the puppy does jump up or does get in your space, I want you to just maneuver your body so that it becomes uncomfortable for them. We're not shoving them out the way, but we're just going to kind of sidestep into them. So it's not a kick or anything nasty. It's just that space, that counter space that I'm working on is just not available for you. Just slowly slide your body towards them so that it becomes uncomfortable. So those two together, the jumping up doesn't work because you can't get there, and staying on the floor and staying back from the food, that does work because the food comes down to you. Does that make sense? So we can have a go at that, can't we? If you've got a coffee table or something just now where you can set it up. To begin with, think of it, you know, when you were doing your kind of leave it training, where if the pup comes towards it, it's a mousy style game, you cover it. If they do anything else, if they step back, if they hold themselves back just for a split beat, then a piece of food's going to fall where they can reach it. Okay? If you can, get your cameras so we can see, but don't worry if you can't. I'll get you to let me know how you got on afterwards. Go on, Mel, you can ask questions if you want. Oh, you're silent. Can't hear you. Don't know why. No, can't hear you. Don't know why. Try switching your mic on and off again. No? Interesting. Is your mic switched on? You might have to have a look in your settings. Okay, if you've got a question, you can also use the chat box. So it'll come up and I can hopefully answer it for you there. So we're not making a big deal out of the delivery. We almost don't want to be involved with the delivery. You know, it's not that we're making a big deal out of it. It just accidentally falls off the counter. So I like to set this up like it's real, you know. I'll even take it to the stage where eventually I'm actually plating up my dinner and doing all sorts of things and practicing turning away from them and then coming back to handling my dinner. But you build it up in stages. So I don't mind my dog standing next to me when I'm cooking, but I don't want them immediately between me and the counter, and I don't want them blocking my. One of our issue, Ola, is that she jumps and barks at the counter when you're just washing your hands. Or when we're sat in the living room, she comes through the kitchen, jump and bark. Okay. So some dogs are quite chatty. Some dogs, and Andrea's got a good example of this. Some dogs are more vocal in when they're trying to explain to you that they want something. Some immediately go to the bark. And one thing we definitely don't want to do with that is bark back at them. So no telling them to shut up, shut up, shut up. But what we do need to do is we do need to show them that it doesn't work. And the way that we show them that it doesn't work is while they're barking, you can have a cue that means that is not going to function. So I like the word shh, yeah, shh, as in shush, or be quiet. But so use the same cue all the time, and then you turn away from them and you do the opposite of whatever it is you think that they want. So Twiggy's a real big one for this. When she's excited, when I'm about to put dinner down, she starts doing this really horrible high-pitched whir thing, and, dinner's coming, and I hate it. So I stop moving in the direction of delivering the dinner. I will turn away from her until she's silent, and then I start my movement back towards giving her whatever it is that she wanted. If she then breaks and starts making noise again, I do exactly the same. I stop moving, I turn away, I make it very clear with my body language. That thing you're doing is not getting you closer to the function that you wanted it to do. Yeah. Doesn't work perfectly straight away. It's something you have to kind of keep doing and keep going over. And as I say, some dogs are more vocal than others, and certainly I think Ralph is one of the most vocal puppies I've ever met. Now, the good thing about it is, I want you to put this into a different frame of mind. If your dog has found a way of trying to communicate with you, that means that they're starting to understand that there is a you to communicate to. Does that make sense? So you could, and I, in another way, I encourage it with Twiggy sometimes as a fun game that we do together. I'll get her actively barking and wooing at me. I'll get her excited on purpose. So we do it together. And I bark and I encourage her to do it. Okay, so that's when you're on a counter. So the alternative method to help with the kitchen issues and the barking issues is, if your dog's barking, there's a chance that it's because they're frustrated. There's something they think that they would like, and they become frustrated because they're not getting it, and they're trying to communicate that to you. What we need is to teach them something else they can do instead that will get them something similar to what they wanted. Okay, so like with Ralph jumping up at the dinner, unfortunately, if he manages to knock it over or he manages to get a taste of it, then that behavior has worked. So we really need to look at, how do you prevent it? And we have to make sure he can't practice it. Every time he manages to knock the dinner out of your hand or manages to get a taste of the plate, that's it. Everything's ruined because he's learned that it works. So prevention would be something like having them behind a stair gate or having them on a lead and secured to something while you're moving around with food. But the better way is to teach them an alternative behavior. We have a bowl of his food that he gets when he sits quietly. Beautiful. All right. So teaching them to go to and stay on their bed, if they know that's their job when you're cooking, then that's what they're going to do, because that's what pays. So we have to make staying on your bed more reinforcing than trying to get to the food that's on the counter or on our lap. And it's annoying to begin with, because you have to pay so frequently to begin with that you can't eat your dinner. Okay, but these are tiny babies we're talking about. Until they've really practiced it, they're not going to be good at it. Okay, when you're teaching a dog to stay in a position on a mat or on a bed or in a certain position in the kitchen while you're doing something, we have to think of the 3 Ds. So Ds are the duration that behavior has to last before they earn that reward, the distance at which they are going to be away from you or the potential reinforcer. Yeah, so that distance, and the distractions that are going on around them. And you need to train those 3 things separately. If you don't train them separately, the dog's never going to really get it. So what I would like for you to do is pick a bed or something that you're going to teach your dog, and I want you to be right next to the dog to begin with. We're not going anywhere, because the first thing we're going to work on is duration. Good girl. The first thing we're going to work on is duration. And duration means the length of time between one treat and the next, one reward and the next. So to begin with, for tiny puppies and young dogs, you need to reward very frequently. Yeah, so you're going to be pop the food on the bed right next to their chest, between their forelegs. Yeah, to begin with. It doesn't go to their faces, because if you put it to their faces, can you see they're liable to stretch up? We're teaching them to stay on the bed, not get up and mess about. So the treat needs to go underneath them. It needs to go under their head, between their legs, because that helps them to want to stay in that position. And we need to reward frequently enough that they're not getting up each time. If they're getting up, there's 2 things that might be going wrong. You might be delivering from above, which is inviting them to get up. So I want you to make sure that you're delivering down and between the legs from underneath the head. And it might be that you're asking them to stay too long between rewards, that you haven't built that criteria slowly enough that your dog can manage it. So if they keep getting up, drop your criteria and check your delivery position. All right, so that's all I want you to do to begin with. So the way that you increase the time is I want you to play around a certain time. So if we imagine that they've got a really good 10 seconds, that they can safely do 10 seconds predictably, and they never break in the 10 seconds, then I might sometimes throw in a 13 or 14 second duration. But sometimes I'm also going to pay for a 5, 6, 7 second duration. So my central number is 10 that they're really good at, but I'm going to pay for less, sometimes pay for more, stretching it around that 10. And then when I know that they're always managing to do the 13 or 14 seconds, I'm going to sometimes pay for 8 or 9, and sometimes pay for 15 or 16. So I'm playing around the 15-second zone. It's not a case of add another second every time, because if you do that, the dog's not stupid. The dog's going to start saying to themselves, well, this just gets harder and harder. So we need to throw some easy ones in there regularly so that they're not finding it harder and harder. And to begin with, you might find that you really have to just stand next to them and constantly deliver. Yeah, you grow that first duration point really, really slowly. If they keep getting up, you're not delivering frequently enough, or you're delivering from the wrong angle. All right. So when you've got a really safe 20-second downstay, and you know that they can do more than 20 seconds, but your 20 seconds is safe, then you're going to start adding distance, okay? And not before then, because if you add it too soon while you're still working on duration, it's going to be too hard for them. So we add distance, first of all, by going nowhere. We're going to add distance going round them a little bit. But we're not going further away. We are in a little circle around the dog. Remembering that when you get to the side of the dog or behind the dog, they might want to get up to look at you. So it's hard for them. So we're going to do little movements, but not actually moving away from them. So it's a little tiny bit of distraction as well. Then, when they're able to do that and they're still maintaining that really nice, safe 20 seconds, we can add distance away. But we start with 1 foot moving away and then coming back within your 20 seconds to deliver to the dog. Add the other foot moving. Yeah? When you're managing to move around your dog and you're managing to move away from them a little distance and they're still maintaining that position on the bed, then you can start adding distractions. Okay, so the first distractions are going to be you moving a little bit, moving your body just a tiny bit, and eventually full-on dance moves. Yeah, even doing silly things like getting down on your knees, laying on your back, throwing your arms around, all sorts of silly things. If your pug gets up, it's information. It tells us that was too hard. Always be ready to drop your criteria back to wherever it was they were doing better, and then slowly increase it. So at no point is the puppy in trouble. We don't want to be getting angry with them for getting up. It's information to us that we're asking too much. It's too difficult. And eventually, when they're really good and you've got your distance, and you've added things like when I come over here and get stuff out of the fridge, if you maintain that position, I'll come back to you and I will reward you for doing that. Yeah. Then you can go back to your counter training where you're doing things on your counter and, you know, you can't see that, I've just done that. You're doing things on your counter and the dogs are maintaining their position while you're doing whatever it is, moving around the kitchen, emptying the dishwasher, doing all of your things, but you're going back to them within those criteria that you've already really safely trained, that distance, that duration. You're adding distractions. You're adding the movement of yourself using your kitchen as those distractions. Okay? As I say, in the meantime, while you're training all of those things, train them when it doesn't matter. Don't try and stress yourself out by training at the same time as you're trying to do real life. Because if you do that, you're just going to get frustrated and angry. So try and set up little training sessions where you're pretending that you've got food or you're pretending that you're preparing dinner so that your dog can get the practice in away from the real situation. In the meantime, prevent them. So get your barriers or leads or other things in place and give your puppy something to do so that they're not getting too upset about you just leaving them on their own. So that's when your Kong wobblers come out and when your licky bowl things, which are fab, and I haven't got one yet and I want one, comes out. Yeah? Any questions about all of that? No? So it is hard, you know, and I think we always have to remember that living with pups and dogs is really frustrating for us sometimes, and it is easy to lose your rag. But that's not training, you know. Training is a separate thing entirely, and as much as is possible, try and set it up so that they're not going to get it wrong in the first place. I'm watching all these little faces now. So if there's more reinforcement coming to the bed where they are, most dogs are going to choose to stay where the reinforcement is going to come from. If at the same time you're blocking their access or you're preventing their access to the thing that they're trying to get to, then that's going to work from both sides. It's going to make it so coming over here doesn't work, that doesn't function. This is the only place where you're going to get reinforcement. Might as well choose that. Yeah. But in a busy environment, not a really good time to train, you go back to the prevention. You make it impossible to get it wrong. All right, is everybody fairly happy with that? And I'm afraid I can't do it for you. It does work. It is just a case of finding the time and making that definite effort and saying to yourself, well, I can either live for the next 15, 16 years with my dog annoying the hell out of me and me getting upset with them, or I can spend the next couple of weeks focusing on teaching the dog, this is what happens when I do this, you do this. So when I get my computer out or I go on my game station, this is your job. Your job is to go and lay on that mat over there. Yeah? Anyone want to give me a wave? Anybody having real big problems with that? Anyone thinking my dog will never get it? Oakley's perfect. It's just there saying, I just stay in bed, that's what I do. All right. So, yeah, I think downstay or stay on a mat or stay in position is one of the very best ways of getting rid of lots of unwanted behaviors. Yeah, even to the point if you've got dogs who are starting to be reactive to other dogs, for example, teach them that a certain mat that is easy to roll up and take with you is a really good place to relax. And then when they've learned that, you can start taking that to new places, and then they can learn that it's the same even when there's another dog or people, if people are a bit scary, even when they're in the environment, this mat still means the same thing. So it can transfer really nicely. Don't know why everyone wants to be under the desk. I do know that they keep catching the wires with their tails. Okay, so the next question then, how's everybody doing with their recalls? Go on, Millie. Do you know what? I'm wondering if it's something to do with me because I can't hear you now either. I wonder if I've got something switched off. Can't hear your voice either now. Let's just have a look at my settings. Try again, just talk to me. Let's see if I can hear you.
Hello. Hello.
All right. Hang on a minute.
Yeah.
I'm going to try Rosie and see if I've just changed something. Rosie, can you just unmute? Can I hear you? Oh, it's breaking up a bit. Try again.
Hello.
Yep, you're on. I don't know what I've touched. So I'll just mute Rosie for a second. Go on then, Millie, ask me what your question was.
When we first got her and did the first lesson with you, she was really good with recall. But this sort of last week, it's like she's forgotten what her name is. Partly, I don't know if it's because Callum, he does tell her off with a name, and I then tell him off for doing that. But he does forget all the time. But yes, so even when we're in the garden, she's not responding. She responds to one. If I call one, as in like the 1, 2, 3 name, if I shout one and she's in the garden, she'll come running back. So I might just rename her.
Okay. Yeah, no, so beautiful. And what you've just told me about is something called poisoning of the cue. So you've got a poison cue, and we'll talk about what's going on there. All right. Anyone else recalls? Any other comments on it so far? Is everybody using a long line to keep them safe? Give me a thumbs up. Andrea, long line? No. Do you not need one? Is he just glued to you all the time? You're on silent, Pet.
Is that better?
Yeah.
No, he's fantastic at the moment. Touch wood.
You mean he's really good at something?
Yeah.
Did you just say that out loud?
Yeah, we deserve that because Sid was a nightmare, wasn't she? And still is. So if he thinks there's food, he's coming back. Come hell or high water, he's coming back. And she started to come back with him. So we have a toy that we keep in the pocket, and it only comes out when I recall and waft it about, and he gets a tug on it, and then it goes back in the pocket. So he's doing really well.
Good. All right, beautiful. Anyone else then with recall reports? And then we're going to go over recall again, make sure. Because I think it's one of the things that you definitely need to be super safe with puppies. And because quite a few of you are coming rapidly into your adolescence, there'll be other drives that are going to get in the way of a good recall. You know, there's going to be other hormonal drives that and brain deficiencies that are going to have you really need your dog to stay in touch with you. So there's two different parts to recall. The first part is if your dog is not really connected with you and engaged with you and interested in what you're doing in the first place, they're more likely to get distracted. So the first part is, are you actually interesting? Are you actually fun to be around? Or are you just a bit of a nag? Are you just a reason that your dog might not want to be back with you? So think about it from your dog's point of view. If they're really starting to engage in something that's fun for them, they're about to start reading their P-mails, or they're just checking out the new bitch that's just moved in down the road, you know, and you keep saying, but what about me? What about me? What about me? You become the thing that they want to ignore. You become the thing that they'd rather not pay attention to. And actually, if we start to do that and be constantly trying to distract them away from the world, then we can start to very quickly be something that they don't want to interact with. So how do we make ourselves more interesting? Well, first of all, don't interrupt so often that your dog starts to see you as something to ignore. So let them engage in the environment as long as they're checking in with you, as long as they're checking to see where you are. Let them continue doing what they're doing. So what do I mean by check-in? Well, it can be that the dog comes all the way back to you and gives you a nudge and you give them a treat, and that's fine. They might choose to do that. Or it might just be that they're walking along having a good time and they look behind themselves to see if you're still there. Yeah? That's a check-in. If your dog's checking that you're still there. So I'm looking for them, looking over their shoulder to have a quick glance to see if I'm there. And what I like to do with mine is I like to start counting in my mind how long since they last checked to see where I am. How long? And if it gets any longer than sort of 15 seconds, then I'm ready. I don't want my dog to disengage with me any longer than about 15 seconds. They usually average around about 10 seconds. That 15 seconds, I've got little alarm bells going off in my head. My dog's not engaging. They're not taking notice of where I am. What can I do to get them re-engaged with me? So engagement games, things like the what's this? Have we done what's this or not? Thumbs up if we have, thumbs down if we haven't. What's this? Brilliant. We're going to do what's this? Oh, some of us have, because some of us have been in to see me. Haven't you? Yeah. So what's this? And games like Ready, Steady, Go. And another game, it's also called a counting game. It's a 1, 2, 3 game, but it's a different game from the 1, 2, 3 game for drop. Okay, but yeah, unfortunately they ended up with the same names from the people that designed them. So the 1, 2, 3 game and the Ready, Steady, Go game are going to be engagement games. So we're going to talk about those. So what is a poison cue? What happens with a poison cue? Well, if you've been using their name to recall them, and you've said that somebody else in the house has also been using their name to tell them that they can't have access to something, or something's going to be taken away from them, or they're in trouble in some way, then why would they want to come back to that same sound? That same sound starts to predict something that they don't like. So we need a sound, a cue noise that always means something amazing is going to happen. And if you've got a partner who really struggles with that, then train it yourself, your own special sound. And eventually your partner will just see that it works and they'll copy you. So nagging at humans doesn't work any better than it works on dogs. So train your own special noise. It's up to you what you use. With Twiggy, I use woo, a really high-pitched noise. With Dodo, I use quick, really high-pitched. I had a guy training in the other day, he was using the word sausage, you know, because it needs to be a word that you're not likely to say in normal circumstances. So it always means the same thing to the dog. It always means get to the owner, because there's going to be good stuff. So we'll come back to that one, but let's have a look at these engagement games first. So the first one, the aim is not to try and get your dog to pay attention to you. And I know that sounds silly. We want it to happen organically. In other words, it's going to happen just because the dog's nosy. All right, maybe she's always engaged. This girl never leaves me alone. So what we do, when she's busy somewhere else, going sniffing something else, let's imagine she is, I'm going to go over and I'm going to find something really interesting on the floor. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a something, it's just something that I'm going to give all of my attention to. I'm not going to look at the dog, I'm just going to really focus on that bit of floor. And I'm going to start touching it. Yeah, and I'm going to say, ooh! What's this? Like that. And that's how good her stay is, because she's ignoring me. what's this? And then when the dog comes over, you're really bad examples of dog training. When the dog comes over, they're going to find that you've left a few treats scattered in that little space. Yeah? So you say, Tweety, ooh, what's this? And they find that there's some food there. While they're eating that, you wander off. You carry on your walk. And then sort of 10 to 15 seconds later, you suddenly find something really interesting over here. Ooh, what's this? And normal dogs will always come over and pay attention. If you watch dogs when they're in a group together, one dog finds a sniff that they're interested in, and suddenly there's loads of other dogs all with their noses down in the same position, all sniffing the same space. So we're not looking at the dog, we're not trying to get them to come to us, I'm not facing her at all, I'm not glancing at her, it's all about me. I'm finding, ooh, what's this? Really interesting on the floor there. And hopefully just before they arrive, you've already got your food scattered down, then you can wander away again. All right, so that's what I want you to do with them just now. Get interested in different bits of the house, leave a bit of scattered food. Can you come out from under the desk, noisy girl? Okay, come out. So obviously out in the wild, you've got more options rather than in a little room. When you're out in the wild, with your dogs nice and safely attached to you by a long line so you can wander away without risk of losing them, you're going to have to leave. You're being distracting. Then you can use tree stumps, lumps of grass, you know, anything that just happens to be in the environment. It can be a bit of old, if it's clean, safe rubbish. So, you know, McDonald's cartons and things like that that are just laying about on the floor. They're not going to bother about the food carton as long as there's no food in it, but they are going to be bothered about finding the treats that you've scattered. Okay. Did you leave your treats on the side? So it's a nice little game. Next thing then is, now that they're a bit more focused on you and they're a little bit more watching you and interested in what you're doing because you've been playing this game, we're going to play a different game. So now your dog's a little bit more engaged. So we're practicing towards them having a really good recall, but we've got a dog's a little bit more engaged. We're going to stand still, keep your treats still, don't do anything, and say, ready, steady, go! And you're going to move, you're going to suddenly get active on the go. And you can run a bit if you like, or you can toss a piece of food if you're not really mobile, if you're tied to a child and you can't really go anywhere with your dog. But go means something exciting is going to happen. Ready and steady are about stay still, hold yourself still. So you're learning to listen and be attentive. So ready, steady, go! And the go is super exciting, and then the super exciting behavior happens. Hello, monkey, that's cute. The super exciting thing happens after that go signal. And it might be that they've got a doggy friend that they want to go run with, and you can do ready, steady, and go can be go run with your friend. Go do dog stuff. Yeah, but they're ready. See, she goes, I am. Steady. And her eyes get really, really big because she's excited for me to say, go. So you could do something like hold your puppy, scatter a load of food where they can see it but they can't get to it. Do a ready, steady while you're holding their collar and then say go so that they can go and grab all of that food that you've left laying around. Or their favorite toy. You could hold them and you could do ready, steady while you're holding their collar, and you could send them to go for the toy that you threw out for them. Hello, go on, Millie.
Ola just stopped playing and got on a bed, so she never does that.
She said this was paying more frequently and easier than this silly game that you're playing now. Yeah. So when we're doing training, this is why you only should only really train one thing at a time. Obviously, I've got to teach you several different things, but whatever you've just trained is always going to leak into what you're training next. So that will be her saying, but I prefer the bed game because the bed game was easy, and this is mixing me up a little bit. And she looks like she needs a nap. Her back legs are tired. She's walking like she's got a nappy full. Okay, so the next game then, I've done what's this? We've done ready, steady, go. And the next one's quite similar, but it's different. Okay, so we're going to do 1, 2, 3. So when the dog looks at you, she's looking at you, not at the food. If you're not sure, put your food behind your back. When they look at you, you say 1, and you put a piece of food right next to your feet. Let's see if I can turn around so you can see her face. Okay, so 1, and the food's right next to my feet. 2, food right next to my feet. 3, yay! I'm going to run, or I'm going to do something exciting. So it's about eye contact, and it's about attention, and then it's about excitement on 3. Okay, so go 1, 2, 3. We make 3 super exciting. So you change your voice, you change your body language, everything suddenly goes, oh, it's so brilliant, so exciting. So it might be that to begin with, the distance between your 1 and your 2, because the puppy's not so good at giving eye contact, it might be a bit slow to get there. You might find that you have to lure the look if your puppy hasn't been doing a lure for look. So wait for them to look into your eyes. And when they look into your eyes, you count 1, treat on the floor, stand up again. When they look in your eyes, 2, treat on the floor. When they look into your eyes the 3rd time, it's party on with your 3. Remember, the 1 and the 2 treats go right near your feet. So the dog comes in to get them, comes back into you. So that's going to benefit you when you're out on a walk, because if you have seen something in the environment and you want your dog to come close enough to be caught, we need them to come all the way back into us. So treats at the feet are really important. You have to point them out. If you drop them and she's like, oh, don't want to come all the way into there, you might have to show her. Some dogs are really suspicious of coming in too close if they've been grabbed. So quite often dogs who've been grabbed and sort of forced to be restrained, they can find it difficult to come all the way in to get those treats. So you have to slowly build them up to it. Millie, I think she's definitely tired. That's a puppy who would rather do still stuff than exciting movie stuff. Yeah, she says, I'll stay here, yeah. I'll just do this. Yeah, that's fine. It's the wrong end of the day for them. Like Naomi was saying earlier, it's the wrong end of the day to do training for my puppy. My puppy's always asleep by this time of the day. Okay, so back to recall then. So these are engagement games. These are, if you see your puppy starting to pay more attention to the environment, then sometimes just getting them engaged with you and getting interested in you. So another engagement game is the dodge and weave game. Okay, so what we're going to do, puppy's already kind of looking at us. They're not completely disconnected from us. We're going to, when they look at us, we're going to go with your feet still. I might go that way, or I might go that way. So your top of your body moves, but your feet stay still. So you might go that way, might go that way. You can see how her little head goes, yeah, when I do it. She doesn't know which way I'm going to go. And when I go, I'm going to toss a piece of food. So I'm going to come here. Ready? So again, she doesn't know if it's going that way. She doesn't know if it's going that way. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to toss a piece of food in that direction and do it again. And that way or that way. I'm going to go that way. Like that. Okay, so again, it's just the dog starts paying more attention to you because it's unpredictable. It's fun watching you. They don't know which way you're going to dodge. Good girl. Hopefully not sure whether or not to just go back to bed. Hi, Andrea. Go on then. Wait, we're not to mute. Have you not got an unmute button?
It's just it says it's not allowing me to unmute myself.
Oh, okay.
But I have, obviously. What's this called?
It says allow participants to unmute themselves. I
Yeah.
think it must be playing up.
What's this game called?
This one, dodge and weave.
Dodge and weave. It won't let me chat either.
Will it not?
No.
It's definitely playing up then. Let's have a look. Chat's switched on. I'll
It
just.
says I'm pinned, or whatever that means.
I don't believe you are. You're not pinned either. Now you're pinned.
I've got a little pin symbol.
Is it still there?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. It's not me then. It's definitely Zoom for some reason.
Can you let him out for a wee?
Okay, so. Oh, now it's not. That's it. Okay, so right then, back to recall. So we've talked about if they get too engaged with the environment and they switch off to you and where you are and what you're doing, then the risk is we become the nag. So we want to be the fun. We want to be the fun in that environment. So there's some games to make you more interesting and make hanging out with you more fun. So she just wags her tail constantly when she's here with me working. Now we can let them engage with the environment a bit more safely, which means that when we do start calling them back to us, we can keep that special. We're not going to be doing it all of the time and making ourselves into the nag. And we want it to stay super special. We want to keep our recall so that we only use it when it really matters. And in order to do that, we need a special word that we're going to use that means every time you hear that special word, get back to your owner as soon as you can. And we want that to not be going through the thinking part of the brain at all. We don't want the dog going, maybe it's worth it. No, we want the dog just hearing that sound and going, instant response, instant reflex. So it's called a reflex response. And an example of a reflex response is when you put your hand on a hot plate. You don't stand there for a bit going, well, it's hot, maybe I'll take my hand off it. No, your hand's already moved. You haven't even thought about it. You're thinking about the fact that you just burned your hand. Your hand's already over here. You know, it's already moved. It didn't go through your brain at all. There was no thought process. It literally, these neurons on your hand, these sensors on your hand told your arm it was hot and the arm was already moving. So it was a motor reflex with no brain thought. So how do we get that trained into the dog's little brain cells? How do we get them to have a motor reflex response? Well, we play a game called the 1, 2, 3 game. And weirdly, they all come numbered like this. I don't know why. It's all designed by different people. So they call it the 1, 2, 3 game because I want you to know and understand that there are 3 separate individual pieces that should not override each other. And the first one is your word. You do nothing with your body until after you've said the word. Okay. The second one is movement. So you're going to run. When you have said the word, you're allowed to move. And the third one is the food. And it's 3 separate things. So what we do is we go, find the food, I've got food. Here's my dog. I'm going to say, woo! And then I'm going to move. And then I'm going to reward right next to my feet. And I'm not going to say anything or do anything until she's looking at me again, and I'm going to go, woo! And I'm going to move and I'm going to put food right next to my feet. Wait until she's looking again, and I'm going to say, woo! And I'm going to run and I'm going to put the food right next to my feet. Now, your run only needs to be a step or 2 steps, so you can start practicing inside the house in the little space that you've got now. But remember, say it, do it, and feed it. 3 separate things. Not allowed to move until you've said it. Not allowed to run until you've said it. Not allowed to feed until they catch you up, even though it's only 2 steps. All right, so say it, do it, feed it. Let's see whether or not anyone's going to practice that for me. If anyone's still got an awake puppy. So we're standing still, we're waiting for them to give attention. When they've given attention, we say it, then we run, then we feed right next to our feet. So we want them to come all the way into us. We don't want to be throwing the food to them. Got rid of Sydney. Ralph's getting big. I couldn't tell the difference then for a second. So wait for your pup to look. So why are we waiting for them to look? Because they're not going to be looking, are they, when we're out and about and they're sniffing stuff and they're engaged with the environment. But if you start trying to train a reflex recall in environments where the dog might be already, all their brain cells are engaged in what they're doing, then that reflex response might not happen because they might already be busy with their brains doing something else. So to begin with, we wait until they're looking at us and paying attention to us before we practice that reflex response. And the reason that the reflex response develops is because of the movement, the chase element. We are getting our dogs to produce a natural response, which is if something moves, chase it. That's part of their natural species specific behaviors that they're born with, is to chase something if it moves. And then the food is the additional reinforcement. Chasing is reinforcing. The food is the additional reinforcement, but that gives us also that training coming all the way back into the owner. not coming halfway back, coming all the way back to get the food, not leaving a space. So say it, do it, feed it, which is also a 1, 2, 3 game, because I want you to remember 3 separate things. Say it when they're looking, run, and feed. Okay, so you do that and practice that in environments where you are sure it's going to work. So to begin with, the only place it's definitely going to work might just be in your living room, like it was just now beautifully. So it's here, have that. Yeah, so that might be the only place it's going to work, because everywhere else is too hard. But once you've got that reflex arc, that muscle memory of when I hear that word, my body starts moving. When I hear that word, I need to be ready to move straight away. Once that's really practiced, you can start then taking it into the garden. You can start practicing calling them from the garden into the house and vice versa, so that they're really getting tons of practice. When I hear that word, move towards the owner. No thinking, just do it. Once you've got them to that level, then you can start using that word in the outside world, but in low distraction environments where they're not likely to become engaged so tightly with that situation. Yeah, because every time you say it and the puppy goes busy, you're undoing it. You're undoing your recall. You're making it so it's not going to work. So we're never going to practice it where we're not sure that it's going to work straight away. And we're going to build up that reflex until it's instant and the dog can't avoid but respond. They've got no choice. So next part of that then is, instead of putting the food at your feet, we're going to move it out. We're going to send it away from us. Now, the benefit of this is that when they turn round after picking up that piece of food and they're moving back towards us, now they're a little distance away from us. When we say it and we start running away from them in the other direction, then we can choose to either toss another piece of food to send them away again, or we can choose to reward at the feet. Okay, so I know that sounds a bit complicated, so we'll see if I can show you what I mean. See if I can show you. Yeah, please. We're working. So here she is. So I'm going to say it. So I say whoop, and then I do it, and then I toss it away. Now, whoop, say it, move. I don't have room to move very far. Whoop. And you can start to increase distance. So I'm increasing distance by her moving away from me, so that when she turns around, she's moving towards me. I can practice her coming back to that recall sound. But I can increase the distance away from her while she's over there eating. So it's a longer distance that she's practicing coming back. Does that make sense? Is that a little bit complex? So I like when I'm doing that one, I don't like to always toss them away from me. I also like to sometimes throw some in at my feet. So to begin with, they're always at your feet. Then you're going to increase distance, so they've got to turn around and recall. The next stage would be, when they're really good at all of those things, don't rush to the next stage. But the next stage would be to toss several bits of food away, so that they're really busy looking for those bits in the grass, so that they're really engaged. And then just before they're ready to turn around, just as you can see that they're about to finish picking those bits up and they're starting to give up finding those bits, so they're still semi-engaged looking away from you, then you're going to say it, which is going to cause them to turn their head and start moving towards you. Does that make sense? But that's when you're at that, already got that. When you're starting to see your dog, you say your recall word and they go, ready to go. Instant startle response. The whole body tenses up and they're ready to start moving. All right, any questions on that bit? We all right? Okay. So it is obviously, it's our last one, I think, for this set. That's a bit sad. Goes really quick, doesn't it? What I like to try and make sure is that you do understand that you do still have access to your puppy stuff, and that includes asking questions. That includes going on Facebook and asking questions on the group. Don't feel that you've got to just, that's it and that's all that happens. And when I know from a long, long time ago, when I first attended my puppy class, the course finished, and I thought that was it. I thought that, you know, I've trained my dog, that's it now. But actually training is lifetime. You know, it should never stop. You should always be thinking of new ways of helping your dog to understand about living with you. So there's always going to be a new problem. But instead of seeing it as a problem, think of it as a training opportunity. My dog's testing me, and that means we can learn something new together. And come back to me with it. Don't just go, and especially if you can't figure it out yourself, come back to me and say, this is happening. What on earth do I do about it? Because that's my job. That's what I'm supposed to be here for you for. So let's have a look. Let's do that so I can see. Is there anything then that you're terrified of? Go on, let's be honest with each other. The whole plan, who are you woofing at? Who are you woofing at? Are you woofing at me? Are you woofing at me? What's up there near the computer that you're after? Can you do it?
With Sarge, he's really playful, and when we're at home, he will constantly want to play, which is fine, but he barks until you play. He doesn't stop. He'll get any toy, and if you don't stop throwing it, or if you stop engaging with him, he'll just keep barking at you. I've tried to teach him you fetch, and sometimes he fetches it, but like now he'll want.
Yeah. Okay. So I know it feels like your dog is going to carry on barking until you give him what he wants. But actually what's happening is you're giving him what he wants because he's barking.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's teaching you to respond. And the reason this works, it's the same reason why you put your seatbelt on when you get into your car. I'm going to shut him up a second. I'll just put you on mute. So you know when you get into your car and you haven't connected your seatbelt, it goes bing, 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 until you connect your seatbelt, doesn't it? Yeah, and that's why you connect your seatbelt. Your dog is the bing, bing noise, and you are responding by giving him what he wants. Okay, all right. If you want him to learn that barking isn't effective, you need to pull that wire. You need to disconnect that bing, bing noise. It needs to not work. All right, it needs to not function. So you have to show him an alternative behavior from yourself, an alternative behavior from that which he is expecting by barking. Yeah, any interaction from you while he's still barking is going to reinforce the barking. So what you do is you turn your back, you walk away, and you ignore him. Now, the problem with just ignoring it is that the dog can learn to be more persistent. Yeah, they can learn that you give up after 20 barks instead of having given up after 10 barks before. So if you're going to go with just the ignoring, you have to properly say to yourself, under no circumstances at all am I ever going to respond to barking ever again. Yeah? Or you can teach him 1 bark's enough. All right? And then we're going to get a bit clever. So we're going to say, first of all, if you've got something that winds your dog up, And food works quite well for barky doggies. Toys works quite well for barky doggies. Get that thing and wind them up. Come here, where are you? Let's see if she'll do it. She won't do it. You ready? Ready, steady. Do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want it? Do you want it? Do you want it? Do you want this? Yeah. We can't have it. 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 She's got one of the best temperaments I've ever seen in a dog. So this is, if it was Dodo, he'd be barking and getting stroppy by now. Do you want that? Do you want it? Do you want that? Do you want it? You can't have it. No. Okay. So if it were almost dinner time and she wanted dinner, she'd come over and start waffling at me, wouldn't you? Dinner. Dinner. Do you want dinner? Do you want dinner? Do you? So first wind your dog up, get them to bark, and on the very first woof, respond and go with them and give them whatever it was. Okay? Get in there before that woofing pattern, that bing, 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 bing pattern starts. But what I want you to do, after you've responded over and over, say 5 times to the woof on the very first woof, what I want you to do is wait 1 tiny split second before the next woof happens, but a tiny, tiny split second before you respond. Okay, so the dog goes, because they've just learned from the pattern, I woof once, woof, get what I want. Now we're not having that woof, 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 woof pattern. We've got 1 woof works. Now they go woof, and you go, yeah, I'm doing it. Okay, so tiny delay in your action. Yeah, so you say you've got a ball or something, and your dog goes woof, and you've been giving it straight away on all the first ones. Yeah, and now they go woof, and you go, and then you throw it. So we've got a little breath. You're going to grow that tiny breath into a longer and longer silence before you deliver. Yeah. Now you can, if you like, you can choose to get in before the woof, but that's really, really difficult. Okay. And one of the ways you can do that is by using a shush signal. So you wind them up, you get them excited, you go very still, you go shh, really, really loud in their face. And for most dogs, it makes them go, whoa, weirdo. Well, that's the silence. That tiny little bit when they back up. Now, what I would say about that is for some dogs, that's really freaky. For some dogs, it really worries them. So I prefer at the moment, until I learn otherwise, I prefer the 1 woof works rule. 1 woof is allowed. Yeah. And grow your silence after that first woof. For some dogs, you can do your shush and get that silence before the first woof and grow that silence from that place. It's one of them things until you've seen it demonstrated, which she's not going to do for me, are you? It doesn't seem to make sense, but you have to trust me, it does work. And if you want, I can show you with your own puppy. If you've got a woofy puppy, Ralph, we can show you that. Or you could have a go now. We'll see if we can coach you through it if he's in a woofy mood. We've got a woofy collie that we could have a go with. No, yes, no, she don't want a dog woofing. Ralph's going to have a go. Look, Andrea's a good laugh. Let's have a look. How can I get you to the, there you go. Can you do it? Can you unmute? I don't know why it's not working.
Right, that's unmuted.
There you go.
It's how helping yourself. I haven't got many treats left. Ready? Ruff. Ruff. What's this? What's this? Won't bloody bark today.
Come on and help from under the desk, lady. Come on out. He says, I'm so good. I'm so good at being silent.
Ready?
Says, why are you growling at me?
Pardon? That's very rude. You're not going to do it. The one time he's silent.
Okay, how's about moving your body around a bit?
Oh,
A bit exciting.
yeah, I would if I could.
Oh, bless you.
Oh, find it. See ya.
Because I am the most silent puppy in the world and I refuse to bark when you want me to. I'm only going to bark. So usually it'll be they'll bark because they're frustrated.
Come back at 3 this morning.
Yeah, 3 in the morning. If you can just do as a video, that'd be great.
That'll be fine.
All right, darling. So, yeah, so that woofing and attention demanding type behaviors, they're only going to be maintained or get worse by the responses. So if we find ourselves getting into that woof shush sort of cycle where we're also adding emotion and behavior to that cycle, then the dog's going to keep going. So what we have to do is break the cycle somehow. And you break cycle hopefully without breaking the dog, without getting a fear response from them. So if you do the woof shush, we need to make sure that the dog isn't really upset by it, that they're happy to keep working with you after it. I would prefer to get the reward in quickly without having to freak them out. Get in and grow that silence between woofs. But yeah, it's not easy sometimes. Some dogs are very woofy. Have a think about what is it that they're actually trying to tell you. So I almost ruined this with Twiggy, actually. I didn't realize that she'd learned that barking was a really good way of telling me that one of my other dogs needed the toilet. She was monitoring the other dog for wanting to go out, and it hadn't clicked in me at all. So she'd come in front of me and she'd proper eye contact and she'd stand there going, a woof 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 grr woof woof bark. Yeah. And I'd be like, will you go away? Will you shut up? And she'd get more and more excited and more insistent. And when I finally stood up to go with her, Dodo would want to go out to the toilet. And she'd kind of stand back from the door and go, see, I told you. And you didn't listen, did you? You know, so I could have very easily missed lots of opportunities to let Dodo outside to do his toilet. But because she was persistent enough to keep trying to tell me, and it's a bit like these stories you hear where the dog wakes the owners up in the middle of the night and saves their lives because there's a fire going on in the house. I'm very reluctant. I think barking is one of the reasons we've brought them into our society. Barking is a natural behavior. It's one of the things that we used to really value in our dogs that we brought into our houses. So I don't want the dog ever to get told off or get into trouble for it. I want us to find ways around it, to teach the dog when it's appropriate to bark and when it's not appropriate to bark. You know, we've brought them into our houses to guard our houses. We brought them into our houses to warn of people stealing from our properties. I think we've genetically implanted the idea of barking. Do you know that wild dogs don't bark? Domesticated dogs bark. We did this to them. So to get upset with them. So I want to say thank you for communicating with me in a way that you think a stupid human might understand, but it's not appropriate right now. It's not going to work right now. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. All right, so that is us, I think. I'm sorry, but we're going to have to kind of wrap it up unless anybody can think of a good reason to keep me online. Ask me a question, anything. Go on. Oh, I love you, Millie. Go on then.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Just that I've just really enjoyed the structure and the training every week. So I almost don't want it to stop. So are there any options for what happens next?
Yeah, we're going back to real classes. I want also to keep the option for Zoom available. So if Zoom suits you better from your lifestyle, get in touch with Dawn and let her know, because we've paid for it. I pay so that I can stay on for longer than an hour, and I can have as many people as I want to have in, and it's not cheap. So you could always say to her, look, I know you've paid for Zoom, but if you want to come into real life classes, they're definitely starting again. So get in touch with Dawn and say, look, I want to come in and do it for real. The other options, obviously, you can book one-to-ones with me, so you can have me all to yourself, and you can book sets, which are cheaper than booking every now and then one-to-one. So lots and lots of options. But yeah, I think keep in touch. I do think that having someone say to you, have you practiced this and what have you done, and or like you say, coming back and saying, like, this has gone wrong, what do I do? I do think it's massively valuable.
I've enjoyed them being on Zoom as well, because they're in our home environment, and it's the trigger areas where she's naughty, you can teach her to be good. Whereas I'm not bothered either way, but Zoom has been good for that, for doing it at home where she spends most of her time.
And I think also from the owner's point of view, I think that it probably is, you feel safer, you don't feel like everyone's watching you as much. And I know that we are all watching each other, and we are all going to go back and look at each other's videos, but I don't feel you feel that quite as much as you do when you're in a real class. You don't feel like you're on the spot so much. Although I try not to allow people to feel that way in real class when they come to real class. I make it obvious, look, nobody's really worried about you. They're worried about their own dog's behavior. We're not allowed to judge in my class. We're not allowed. Otherwise the trainer gets really stroppy and comes over and tells you off for talking or looking at somebody else with the wrong frame of voice. We do lots of little celebratory claps for each other. So but it'd be nice to see. I know I've seen a couple of you in real life because you booked one-to-ones with me anyway, so that's been lovely. But yeah, I think it's going to be exciting going back to real classes as well, because quite a lot of the dogs won't have had the social experiences in the same way. So I'm going to have to change the way that I'm doing some of my stuff a little bit to help dogs back into feeling comfortable around each other. So challenge for me, which I don't mind. I like a challenge. But it's nice of you to say that you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Right, any other questions, comments, waves, wiggles? Yeah, oh, hang on, Rosie and Andrea, I've got a competition here going on.
Hello.
Hello.
So I just want to start by saying I agree with Millie. I've really enjoyed the past 6 weeks, and I think looking back, I mean, he's fast asleep now, but looking back, he's grown so much. He's done so much better. He's getting so much better with walking, with everything. But I was just thinking, do you do like teenage classes as well? So obviously we've done the puppy classes. I was just wondering if you did like a teenager or refresher classes.
We do. The teenager, you cover a lot of the same stuff, but because I get bored if I teach the same stuff over and over, so I teach the same principles in different ways. So you might see some of the same stuff being taught the same way, or you might see the same principle being taught in a completely different way, and you think, well, I've not done this before. So I think it's still fresh. I think the benefit as well of moving into a teenager group is that the people that you're there with are going through the same as you, and teenagers are hard to live with. So
yeah.
So yeah, we're doing a teenager group as well.
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay. All right, what do you after, Andrea? Oh.
I was just actually I was going to touch on that point. we're doing the teenage class we have been doing for the last year with Sid, but we didn't get to do the puppy class. And now it's beginning to make sense, the foundations. We sort of came in halfway, and you try and catch up, but doing this class has made the puppy class seem, the teenager class, pardon me, seem a lot clearer. We've been with our teenage class for the last year. We all go out for walks together. It's brilliant. So if you get a chance to go onto the teenage class, do it. It's amazing. But the puppy class has been brilliant. It's really taught me even more. Thank you, Julie.
No, I love it. You know, I love it. And I love, I mean, Andrea, basically, and the group that was there at the time when lockdown suddenly happened, and they booked a set of real life classes, and suddenly I had to figure out how. I'd never done Zoom, I'd never done classes online. I had to suddenly do it, and they'd already paid, and do we cancel them, or do we say, look, do you want to do this? And 50% of the class were like, oh, you can't, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. And they've all stuck with me. You know, they've all stuck with me through the whole of isolation. It means a massive amount to me. And now they're all friends. And I'm trying to talk Andrea into becoming a dog trainer as well, but she's not convinced yet. You know, because then I can keep her in my life for definite, other than just hoping that she'll keep booking classes with me. I can just keep her in my life for definite. But, you know, dog training never stops. I'm constantly, I go to other dog trainers to teach me, to teach my dogs. Because as much as you say to yourself that you're going to keep doing it and you're going to just keep doing it, you don't, you fade away, you know, and you wait until there's a problem, and then you'll start trying to fix that problem. Whereas if you're constantly practicing and just getting better at what you do, the problems don't seem so difficult when they do come up. You can solve them much more easily. And yeah, I'd like to have a whole, I mean, I've been doing it for so long, 20 plus years, and people from over 20 years ago will come back and say, oh, I was in your dog training class in such and such, and do you remember me? And well, obviously I don't, for most of them. But the more people I can keep in as friends, look at you, Ola, the more people I can keep in as friends who just keep coming back and saying, no, this is happening and that's happening, the better, as far as I'm concerned. You know, that doesn't mean I want your dogs to be awful and that you're constantly going to need me. I want you to be constantly growing and improving and have the best relationship with these dogs that you've ever had with a dog, and understand them the best that you've ever understood your dogs. Anyway, is it dog waving time? Should we get a dog to wave at each other? Here's mine. Come here. She just farted. You ready? Oh, go wave your dog. Gonna wave your dog. Yay! It's a kiss. She says, get off, weirdo. Oh, Ralphie. Oh, no. Somebody poke that Oakley and tell him we're saying goodbye. Bye. See you later. Thank you for joining me. Bye.